Hello, I'm John Grom, and welcome to our 123rd Right and Left Discussion Forum. We hold our televised panel discussions twice monthly to demonstrate the value of civil, productive, open-minded political dialogue. Approximately twice a year, our panel discusses the state of U.S. politics in one form or another. Today, our panel will have a general discussion on the state of our political life as of May 2018. Our panel, beginning on my left, is Patty Haskins, member of the Wadsworth City Council. On her left is Bryan Laubaugh, president of R&B Financial Services. On his left is Dr. Ronald Chamberlin, retired senior research chemist. And on his left, sitting in for Jerry Ritzman, is Tom Finley, co-founder of the Great Lakes Resource Center. Patty, last October we discussed our political climate as of the fall of 2017. How would you describe American politics as of May 2018?
I think it's worse. I think it is more divided, and it continues to get more divided. Now, we have discussed in the past that animosity between parties and name calling has occurred since the beginning of our government. We've taken examples from the early presidential elections, and some of those were considered the worst of all. But all I can see is it getting worse, and particularly I reference the primaries that we just had and the advertising that was shown on television concerning these elections. 90% of it was negative campaigning. It was interesting. I recently spoke with two Republicans who were very disenchanted with the advertisements for members of their own party. Yeah. And we're very concerned. One of these people is actually very prominent in Medina County Republican politics. And they said, they were having difficulty deciding upon who to vote because of the way the campaigns were run. And this was nationwide. I think one of the things is it's now considered chic to call your opponent by some nickname that makes them appear.
Guess who started that?
And I really wouldn't know, nor would I ever say. But this, there was a gentleman running for the primary for the Senate in West Virginia by the name of Don. It'll come to me in a second.
We're trying to forget his name.
Yeah, I'm trying. Blankenship. Don Blankenship. Yeah. And now he did not win. And it's interesting. I mean, he was such an attractive candidate, seeing as he just got out of prison for not following safety standards that led to the death of 29 minors. But he made the comment, he referred to Mitch McConnell, as his phrase was "ditch cocaine Mitch." And I thought, where is this? I mean, and I understood where he got this connotation, but to say that in a primary, and then to make references to various ethnicities in a derogatory fashion, and this was considered okay, and he still received
17%.
17%. So 17% of the people out there thought this was a good idea.
Interesting thing about that, the week before, the polls had him ahead.
Exactly.
What does that tell you about polls?
Right, but it's scary then that he did get the votes. I saw this in the, particularly I thought in the Republican race for the U.S. Senate between Taylor and DeWine. And when I listened to those ads, all I heard was negativity about the other. Occasionally they'd throw in a line, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But it was, DeWine is too liberal and whatever for Taylor. And half of it is true, half of it isn't. And you're not really finding out about the candidate. I listened to, actually just last night, I had something I taped, and I listened to it and had a Kucinich ad on it, in which he was attacking Cordray, and in a negative manner. He got a few things in that he would do, but the primary thrust of the ad was negativity. And we've gotten to the point where it seems like the entire ad is negativity. And if you can't attack your opponent, you attack the person that used to have the job, or the former president, or...
We all say that we hate negative campaigning and we vote for the person who does it best, consistently.
Personally, I don't think that I do, and I'd like to think that most people don't, but it shouldn't affect, and it shouldn't be part of a civil discussion of issues, because then when we elect an official, we don't know where they stand, what they represent, and that's what you get.
I understand that totally, and I'm infuriated by it, but like I say, we continue to vote for the people. When this campaign season started for the primaries in Ohio, the first week or so there were ads and I had no idea who they were for.
Oh, those
I
were
only knew who they were against.
A lot of those were the PACs that came out.
Yeah. Anyway, Bryan?
Well, yeah, I don't disagree with Patty. I think the whole tone and tenor of elections says, we're on just this elevator to the bottom, and how nasty you can get and how much mud you can sling. I don't think it does anybody any good. I think one of the issues that I've talked about before is that through social media and through the media, they throw a real megaphone on all this stuff. It plays, it sells papers, Everybody wants to read about the accident on the front of the newspaper. Yeah. Everybody wants to read about, the terrible, the alcoholic or the drug addict or whatever, and we've lost sort of our real sense of just it's okay to be kind at times. We have a tendency to want to name call. I don't think that does anybody any good. I'm not a fan of Mr. Trump. I've said that before. I don't believe the way you go about building a consensus is by saying such terrible things about your opponent that it almost, if they weren't in the public realm or running for a political office, would be either libel or slander. Some of the things that people get away with, if you were to say that to somebody, there'd be a lawsuit. But because you're running for office, you're fair game.
Yeah. And they're lies.
And they're lies.
Yeah.
And they're lies. I mean, and Republicans, Democrats, Bernie Sanders is real good at this. He tries to energize his troops by throwing the Waltons under the bus, or throwing somebody that's as far as most people would be concerned, they're doing their part. We're in a capitalist society, and so.
But is it worse now?
Yeah, I think so, because the media and social media gives it legs.
Has it transferred over to the voters? Are the voters more acrimonious now toward each other?
I think it confuses people. It's not. This particular primary, it was all about who could be more conservative than Trump, or who threw the who wrapped themselves in the Trump banner. You look at some of the signs. Trump for Hagen, or he didn't even mention her name.
The ads also Trump.
Yeah.
We had some aliens from Hagen that were.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, the robocalls were rolling in every day. I mean, I had 7 calls, and we don't answer the landline, and it's just sort of we call it's kind of like junk phone, like junk mail. I mean, we don't answer it because there were 7 calls for one particular candidate, and it was just basically running down the other guy. And I don't know if that really gets you where you want to be at the end of the day. And so yeah, I think it's worse because it gets spread very quickly. It's like that manure spreader out in the field. It just sprays it all over the place. And when you get done at the end of the day, Mitch McConnell, what is that kind of stuff? It's almost like we're just going to burn everything down. We're not taking any. It's just just wipe it all out. Salt the earth. We're out for blood, and I just think we have to step back and reevaluate where this goes and the type of people we get.
Yeah. Ron, let me put you on the spot. You don't mind, do you?
Not at all.
No. I think you would agree that the nation is sliding down the slope toward incivility more, or less civility than before. Do you think there's a way to reverse the trend?
I heard a quote the other day that was rather amusing but pretty accurate. It said the political discussion these days is like playing hopscotch in a minefield. Because, it's tough. It's tough to get out of your bubble. Social media, particularly. I've followed a couple of arch conservative groups for a while, and anytime I make a comment, I would be attacked so severely. You know, there's no chance of a civil discussion in that forum, really.
Do you find my jabs uncivil?
No. I just like to respond to them. Think of something to jab back at.
You should have said yes.
No, John.
See where he positioned himself after that, right?
Well, yeah, but it's true. That's a problem, and I have concerns about that. I think it's getting worse. It was pretty bad during the campaign, during the presidential campaign. I had relatives, drop me off of Facebook because of our differences of opinion, and one of them came back after I, made the effort. The other one I don't care about.
I hope it was your cousin who came back.
No, she didn't come back.
I'm
It
sorry.
was the mother of my granddaughter that came back eventually. So
Your daughter.
my cousin never did. And it was interesting because my granddaughter and her mom were on opposite sides of the political fence. She was very upset about Trump. She said, "Who am I going to vote for?" She said, "I don't like Hillary and I can't stand Trump. What am I going to do?"
Stay
Last
home.
time I saw my granddaughter. And she's a young lady. I mean, she just turned 21, so she was just voting for the first time 2 years ago. So that's a problem. I'm very concerned about Mr. Trump. One of the things you ask in a little questionnaire you sent to us is, are we concerned about his personality or his personal habits and thoughts or his policies? And I had a discussion many years ago with my beloved father-in-law. He was a Presbyterian minister, very conservative. We were talking about Frank Sinatra. And he says, "I can't stand to listen to him. He has such a terrible reputation."
Oh.
Frank had some things, but
What a wonderful singer.
this man's an artist. When he sings, it's different.
Yeah.
And maybe I heard also just a few days ago, after Trump spoke at the National Prayer Breakfast, I heard an evangelical leader, pastor, being interviewed, and the man asked him point blank. The interviewer says, "How can you accept this man with all of the things that he has done and has said?" He says, "What we look at is they look at the stance. They're particularly concerned about the abortion right to life issue, as evangelical Christians." And it says, "And this outweighs for us much of the other stuff, so we're willing to support him." And it's as I read the statistics, white evangelicals are very, particularly in the clergy as well, are very much for Trump. One of the few groups that's very strongly for him. Everybody else is sort of so.
Yeah.
And this is one of the main reasons they feel that that's true. Now, unfortunately, theology should inform your morality and your view on life, but it shouldn't get in the way of the facts.
Yeah.
So when under Trump's regime, we're dismantling the EPA and we're changing the regulations, which are by and large good and protective. I mean, this is a concern for me. This is a concern for me. I don't care about Trump's personal morality. We've had bad moral characters in the White House before. John F. Kennedy comes to mind. So, but you got to look at the performance. You've got to look at it, and to some extent, people's personalities and people's moral outlook determines their actions, or helps determine their actions, and that's a concern for me with Mr. Trump.
Tom, I noticed you feverishly writing notes. Would you like to share your thoughts with us?
Well, I thought you'd never ask, John. I think that we've heard a theme here, and I just want to remind us of this. And we've used the word worse, for instance. In change, that old adage is often true, in that is sometimes it has to get worse before it gets better.
Bottom out.
And I think this is just true of government or whatever, certainly cultures, but I think we're in that point right now. And one of the pitfalls of that is we then begin to fall into this business of only looking at negatives. And if you look at our current thing, and the first thing that comes to mind when I sit back and look at that is, we have heard more about government and the goings-on of government than we have ever heard. It's in the news every day. And we are learning about government and its function or its dysfunction more than we ever have before.
And you see that as a good thing?
I see
Why?
that as a good thing because we're getting more and more dissatisfied with it. And that gets me my point about addressing what I see the state of things right now. And I just made 4 notes of that, and I'd like to share that if I might. But I made this part. Neither party has established a clear, discerning platform. It is mud. It is ambiguous. It changes. That's disastrous for us in terms of trying to pilot our way through. Right along with that, there's no, no consistent quality leadership on either party that stays put or is evident. That's a sad thing. And both parties have forgotten who their customer is. You know, the party comes first, not us. That's very evident anywhere you turn. And the other point I'm making is there is no accountability based on the need for reform in the way we do business. And we haven't even thought about technology. So I'll just make one quick point on that so we don't get derailed. There is no reason anymore for our congressmen to represent us. Think about it. We can, on Friday night, as a nation, go to the television and vote on any issue that we need to vote on. The town meetings can be alive and well. We don't need representatives. We need someone to do the history for us and tell us what's best, in their opinion, for the country and whatever. And we need to start voting.
Before we leave that topic, Patty, what do you think about what he just said?
I'll interrupt to say I used that point about technology.
Yeah, I understand.
And
we don't-
how we are ignoring it.
Well, of course, the obvious point is that it would have to throw out the entire Constitution to do that, and then you would be
Yes.
going back to a strict system of democracy as opposed to the republic, which we have. The concern that I have is
I have a
when
concern
you
about
vote-
the low information voter.
well, exactly. That was my
They don't
point.
take the time.
They don't have
You
all
know.
of the information that
Yeah.
is needed
Yeah.
to make an educated, intelligent vote on an
Right.
issue. They don't have a staff that can research all of the pros and cons of a particular item. They will do or will tend to do what favors them and them alone, as opposed to looking at the grand picture and how it affects the state and or the city even, or the country. So I would have concerns of going to the strict, to that strict form of democracy. I think, yes, we have the technology for it, but because of the mere size of this country and all of the different things that can be affected by a vote in that manner, I would definitely discourage that.
I would just comment that not even as a counter, but the surveys and the literature around the informed voter puts a very dismal picture on how well people are informed when they go to. So that is a travesty right there.
Well,
I find it very difficult to get informed on, not necessarily on the top part of the ticket, but I show up at the polling booth, and here's 2/3 of the people on that ballot are, firstly, unopposed.
Yes.
Secondly, I have no idea who they are.
Right.
And I couldn't find that information. I looked hard for I looked at the board of,
you can go to the Board of Elections, and they do have sample ballots, so you can see everybody that is
yeah, but
on.
who the heck are they?
What I
Very hard.
what I
It's difficult
personally
to find the
did,
time to take that.
what I
to do that
personally
research.
did was to go to their websites. I would type in their name I figure if they don't have a of course I never had a website set up, but if they didn't have a
make one for you.
website set up, or if I could find no information about them, okay, this is not someone that it's not going to take the time to at least send a flyer to me and do some ad time in the newspaper, or show up at a debate. For example, there was both for the congressional seat. There was a Republican debate at the Galaxy. There was a Democratic debate at the Strand. And even if you couldn't go to those, you could read the write-ups on them in the newspapers. You could try to find a tape of those so that you could watch that. It's amazing working at the polls, seeing how many people walk in and have no idea what's on that ballot. And this is your idea of the uninformed voter.
Yeah.
And that's well, I don't know what percentage voted in this primary, but maybe 30.
Weren't many people down there when I showed up.
I thought it was a well-attended, but I'll bet it wasn't more than 35%. So if only that percentage is even showing up to vote, and then you have many of them that are totally uninformed, that kind of paints the picture for what we're dealing with.
Yeah, so it begins to say the need for change and the application of technology is an answer. It may not be to the extreme that I'm talking about, of course. I use it just to stir things up. However, you could make the case that the role of our congressman is more one of getting us informed about where the party and where they see the best thing for it.
And getting elected.
And that doesn't happen.
And getting elected, because the day they get elected, if you're in Congress, the next day you start fundraising for your 2-year.
So
Let me ask this question. The dictionary definition of a bigot is one who is strongly partial to one's own group, religion, race, or politics, and is intolerant of those who differ. Would you say on both sides, the left and the right, bigotry reigns?
Oh, yes.
I know
I
it
think
rains,
I'm-
but it's certainly
you
a strong
know,
influence.
I think at both sides.
I don't
yeah.
think so at all.
You don't think it reigns?
No, I think our media just
Makes it that.
maneuvers that. It sells.
If you read
So,
anything from Vox or some of these very sort of progressive, the four of us here are bigoted. We're racist. We're white privilege. Our patriarchy privilege. They've painted this picture that.
Well, that's true, but no.
I read a definition of a bigot that it might be appropriate to say.
Oh,
It says,
Patty.
never argue with a bigot. They'll reduce you to their level and beat you every time.
Yeah. No, I think there's valuable opinion if you just I've always felt I've never been for preferences, and Patty's opinion, if you're whatever race, creed, religion you are, if your opinion and you're willing to argue that opinion and it has merit, then I'm willing to listen to it. But
Right.
when you just step up and say some silly thing comes out of your mouth,
You're wrong, I'm right.
yeah,
That's-
and because you're X, Y, and Z, and you've checked off 4 of those boxes that give you the privilege to do that, I think that's pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
I think that's really dangerous when we do that.
I'd like to watch the Intelligence Squared debate series, and you can find it on YouTube and pick out whatever topic you want. But I watched one the other day, and there was a woman who was a professor at Princeton. Now, you would think that takes some real qualifications to become a professor at Princeton. Somehow, somebody on the other side of the debate was, the question was resolved, liberals have the moral high ground. Somebody mentioned something about race on the opposed side, and this woman went ballistic. She wouldn't stop. And she said, I'm not going to listen to that. Well, I'm here at this, that is all wrong. And she ranted and wouldn't listen to anything, and the moderator had a terrible time getting her to settle down. And I thought he was going to call security. This is on a civilized debate series, but she would not listen. And I think that if there's one word that I'd like to send out to the hillside and all, it's the word listen. just listen to what other people have to say. There's a guy who's on one of my Facebook friends, very bright young guy, and he has a lot of interesting things to say, but every now and then he comes unhinged. And after Trump had pulled out of the Iran deal, well, he used some profanity that I'll skip over, but it was an adjective or two that came ahead of idiot, you know, and that Trump is to idiot, and so is everybody who voted for him. Now, I thought that was a little extreme,
That is.
but it's not uncommon.
But don't you think too, though, if you watch, the 24-hour news cycles and the pundits that are on there, that's their style of interview. They will, and this is, I'm not just saying Fox or MSNBC, it's all of them.
Yeah.
They bring someone on from the opposing side to show that they're fair or balanced.
And unafraid.
And then they won't let them answer a question, they speak over them, and that's the style of not listening and confrontation that people think is appropriate now, because that's what's demonstrated to them 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
I agree with Ron. The most civil news/opinion network is PBS. I don't. Fox, their idea of fair and balanced is you get people at two extremes to yell at each other. CNN won't even do that. I mean, they're all so biased one way or another.
Oh yeah.
Just report the news. just report it. There's a fire on XXX. 3 trucks. Forget about all the other stuff. You know what I'm
Well, I
saying?
enjoy opinions, and
Well, yeah, but you
sharing
should.
different sides.
That
but-
used to be reserved towards the end of the news broadcast, you
And
know,
done
because
civilly,
exactly
yes.
they got on there and they gave their editorial opinion. You know, opinions. You turn to the Wall Street Journal, you know it's opinion. You know,
Yeah.
it's not in the main body. It's not presented as fact or reporting. We're not reporting news anymore. We're reporting how it's the biases of everybody and how that rolled out. So can we get back to just reporting the news? I mean, just report the news.
Just like Walter Cronkite.
Walter Cronkite, yeah, until he started with LBJ.
Thank you very much, panel. Time is up. And it was a great program. Thank you, Tom, for being with us.
Yeah.